see all your faces. Hey to you that are joining us online too. All right, so when I was here a couple weeks ago now, I introduced our topic for the month, which is awe. Awe. Let's say that together. Awe. It just feels good to say it, doesn't it? It's that state of intense joy and bliss, enchantment, that chill-producing, jaw-dropping experience that we have when we allow ourselves to be fully present to those wondrous, magical moments in our lives. And we looked at ways that we could reconnect with a sense of wonder, right? And why that's important, how it benefits us spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically even. And what we talked about, the 8 categories of awe that Dacher Keltner explains he defines these 8 categories of awe in his book, The New Science of Everyday Wonder, and how it can transform your life. Really amazing. And those categories were nature, which we talked about 2 weeks ago, or sometimes he refers to it as wild awe. Collective effervescence, that shared experience of awe. Musical awe we talked about. Visual design. That also includes sacred geometry, can be in that category. Spirituality and religion, which we're familiar with. Stories of life and death. Epiphanies, that aha moment. And moral beauty. And so it is this last category that I'd really like to explore more fully today, moral beauty. And I think the best way to really explain this is through story. So let's go. Yuyi Morales grew up in a small town in Mexico. And when she became an adult and she had a child of her own, her and her partner wanted to make sure that the grandfather met the new baby because he was ill and wasn't expected to live much longer. And he lived in San Francisco. So they got their stuff together quickly, and she kissed her mom goodbye, and they did it. They crossed the bridge into Texas and then took the flight to San Francisco. And they, in fact, introduced the baby to the grandfather. And it was a wonderful experience. And while they were there, they got married. And the husband is a U.S. citizen. So that changed her status, and she became a permanent resident. Well, the immigration laws at the time, I don't think they're like this anymore, but the immigration laws at the time really didn't allow her to go back to Mexico. She was expected to stay in the United States. So here she was in a foreign country, did not speak the language, couldn't speak English, didn't have any friends, didn't have, she was lonely, she didn't have anybody, she missed her mother terribly. And she was lonely, And so she finally decided to take the baby in the stroller and walk up and down the hills of San Francisco. Have you ever been to San Francisco? Woo, some steep hills, and woo, steep hills. You gotta hold on to that stroller. And one day, she runs into a library, and she walks inside and is awestruck. She has never seen that many books, rows and rows and shelves of beautifully bound books, just there waiting. Never seen anything like this. And she also felt fear because, she thought, well, I don't know the rules here. What if I make a mistake? Maybe they feel like I don't belong, and maybe they'll kick me out. And that's when she was thinking about that. and a kind librarian came over to her and her son and made them feel welcome and introduced them to the children's section. And again, here she was awestruck. Look at all these beautifully illustrated books. They're just these wonderful adventures and stories that are just waiting for us to dive into. And so the library became her sanctuary, and books became her teacher. This is how she learned English, through children's books. And then the librarian offered the son his own library card. And again, she was awestruck. Like, you mean I can take these books home? Like, I can walk out of here? You're not going to arrest me? Yeah, as long as you bring them back, right? Good. And so she took them home, and this became a routine. And it allowed her to relax. It allowed her to dream. And she dreamed of one day writing her own children's books, writing and illustrating her own children's books. And she had always drawn, she was a bit of an illustrator herself. And so she had this dream, and she had a couple of heroes that she thought would make really good topics for children's books. Frida Kahlo, Cesar Chavez, she thought would be really great to introduce children to these, what she considered heroes. And so, fast forward 20 years later, she wrote those books, and her son helped edit them. And they went on to become Caldecott medals. And the recent book called Dreamers has an unlikely hero, which is the library and the librarian, the kind, warm-hearted librarian that really changed her life. And so she sent a copy of this book along with a letter of gratitude to Nancy, this librarian who is still there, that absolutely changed her life. And this is that book, Dreamers. It's beautiful. It's beautifully illustrated. This is going into our YFM upstairs for the kids. I can look at that next week. Yeah. Yuyi Morales is her name. Most people assume that we get our moral compass from religious instruction, the Bible, right? Or any kind of sacred text that belongs to whatever religion we belong to. But yeah, more often than not, it comes from the awe that we feel when we hear stories about and we witness acts of compassion and understanding and courage, stories of overcoming, right? These stories move us to tears because they touch something deep in us, this deeper truth that unites us with each other. They bring into focus, our priorities. You make clear what really matters. And sometimes an event in and of itself can move us to action, can bring out the better angels of our nature. So I have shared with you, although I realize not all of you were here when I shared this story about my brother, who was strong, active, in shape surfer. He lives in Southern California. He's been a surfer all his life and a tennis player. And he was struck with a hemorrhagic stroke, which is like the worst kind you can have. And it's devastating. There's just no two ways about it. It's devastating. This happened at the end of December. And he's in Los Angeles. He was in a hospital for 8 weeks and has been moved now to a skilled nursing facility. We're celebrating. He is making progress, right? We're celebrating every little thing. I mean, the brain, just like any other part of your body, can heal itself. It just takes a lot of time. So every little movement forward, we're celebrating. So, as I mentioned, he lives in Long Beach. Well, this is very close to where my daughter, Olivia, lives now. And so my daughter, Olivia, truth be told, to be perfectly honest, she is kind of self-absorbed, let's just say. She kind of spent her entire life not really having a lot of concern for anybody other than herself. Right. Stay tuned. So, and my brother he never really created a relationship with, my children. He was there when they were small, but at some point he just kind of removed himself in the picture, right? So you can imagine how surprised I was when she said, "Yes, I'll go with you, Mom. I'll go with you when I was out in California. I'll go with you to visit. He's my uncle." She says, "He's my uncle. Of course I'll go." And so, I warned her that this is going to be hard to see, right? It's not, be prepared. And so when she walked in the room with me, she was visibly shaken. And her eyes, filled up. And she had to go out and take a minute. When she came back, she had somehow found the strength. And she came into that room and she took my brother's hand in hers and held it. And just wouldn't let go. And just held on. And I was on the other side holding his other arm, his other hand. So we're both holding his hands. And I'm playing on my phone, I'm playing Beach Boys music because, he's a surfer. I know he knows these songs. And we're moving his arms like we're, kind of dancing with him, right? And he's got a big smile on his face. Big smile. You could tell he was just loving this. It was just a miraculous moment. And so when I left and came back here, and he's now moved to this facility, she actually went again. She visited him again, and this time she brought crystals because she's now into crystals. So she's got these healing crystals, and she's putting it in his hands and putting it on his throat because we got to heal this so he can learn to swallow. And she's FaceTiming me, and he's got this beautiful smile on his face. And again, it's like, he's my uncle. Of course I'll continue to go. This 23-year-old self-absorbed girl has transformed in front of my eyes. And it's just awe-inspiring. The event just brought out the better angels of her nature, as it can do. Kindness. Unexpected kindness offered to others can have unexpected, miraculous results. I'll show this in a second. So there was a documentary short that was up for an Academy Award last Sunday, when the Academy Awards didn't win because there were a lot of other really good ones too. I think the one that won was The Elephant Whisperer. Yes. Did you see it? Oh yeah, that's really good too. Well, this one is called Stranger at the Gate, and it's a perfect demonstration of this idea of how kindness can absolutely transform a situation and transform somebody's life. Is it, are we ready to roll? And, well, I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's 30 minutes, but you can find it on YouTube. It's there. You can watch it on YouTube. This is a segment.
We usually turn to filmmaker Josh Seftel for thoughts from his mom. This morning, though, Josh has news about his new documentary in conjunction with The New Yorker called Stranger at the Gate, about how love can conquer fear and hate.
A few weeks ago, there was a wedding in Muncie, Indiana. This is Mac, and he's getting married to Stephanie.
You're beautiful.
And this is Bibi, who's offered to cook all the food, while her husband, Saber,
You look so handsome, man.
officiates the wedding.
We should have love for each other, to understand each other, to know each other.
What you never know about this picture is that 10 years ago, Mac had plans to murder Bibi and Saber. 2 decades ago, when Mac served in the military, he started having trouble coping with the death he saw around him. So he went to his superior to ask for help.
Looked me straight in the eye. Says, Mac, you're on the range, you're shooting at a paper target. As long as you can look at them as anything but human, you won't have any problems. I said, oh, okay, that makes sense, yeah. And that's what I did.
When Mac returned to the US, he no longer felt at home.
I was being forced to see people that I considered an enemy every time I went out the door. Got to the point to where I just wanted to do harm to them.
And that's when he hatched a plan.
My plan was to detonate an IED right outside the Muncie Islamic Center. And I was hoping for at least 200 or more. Dead, injured.
But when Mac arrived at the mosque to scope things out, Bibi and Saber met him with kindness.
And he's like a guest, so I couldn't help it except to make him feel from my heart that he's welcome.
He hugged my leg. This guy doesn't know me. Hugged my leg.
I invited him over for dinner.
That was pretty heavy. They don't even know the truth.
Confronted with this kind of compassion, not only did Mac not end up bombing the mosque, he eventually joined the mosque.
I could never, in a million years, repay this community what they've given me.
I do see Richard as my little brother. He didn't know anything better.
You showed me the right way. You showed me what true humanity's about.
After 9/11, when I saw my Muslim friends facing hate, it felt disturbingly familiar. As a boy growing up in upstate New York, I faced anti-Semitism, name-calling, and even a rock thrown through our living room window. That's why I started making this series of short documentaries that stand up to the hate. The story of Mac, Bibi, and Saber and their unlikely friendship is the latest film in this effort. If this story can have a happy ending, and these people can be friends,
God bless you, congratulations, and Mubarak. Thank you.
maybe there's hope for the rest of us.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, the family that welcomed him in, that made him feel a part of the family, of their family, were, I mean, amazing. The mother said, she says in the documentary, when you meet someone who is troubled or stressed, she said, I believe that's when you need to offer more kindness. You need to offer extra kindness. And the husband is saying, you know, if you feel that you can be a part of the solution, then that's just what you do. And not only did it transform this guy's life, it saved their entire community. Hundreds of people. And it stopped the cycle of violence. It stops the cycle of violence. Dacher Keltner, who wrote this book, he said about awe. The awe felt in encountering humanity's better angels can counter toxic tribal tendencies. The awe felt in encountering humanity's better angels can counter toxic tribal tendencies. And that's indeed what was happening there, right? You know, these stories and encounters, they help us to have hope for humanity. They help us feel optimistic about humanity. And not only that, they inspire us to act in similar ways, right? And then when we act in similar ways with compassion and courage and kindness, that inspires somebody else to act with courage and kindness and compassion, which inspires somebody else. And you see, this is how the circle of humanity grows. This is how the circle of us divinely human being grows. And above all, it helps us to see that we're all one. You know, we're all one. And when we participate in acts of compassion and courage, it connects us with something larger than ourselves. It's that one universal ground of being that we all share, that all unites us. Moral beauty awakens the divine light in us and in each other. Namaste.